Welcome everybody. I hope you arrived safely, most of you at least. I have the honor to teach the first class, or the problem of teaching the first class. You're not used to training, and we'll see how that goes. You picked a topic called tripod passing. It's a very interesting and very fun topic, albeit not super easy to actually pull off. The class label of all levels I picked because I truly believe that everybody can get something out of it, even if you will not be able to pull off tripod passing itself at the end of the class. But you will familiarize yourself with active posting, like not getting swept. You will work with your center of gravity, like where to place it and how to be stable. So the things we're going to work on will serve you well in other positions and other instances as well. But just be prepared that it will not be super easy to do certain things depending on where you're stepped, right? If at the end of the class, you still have the feeling that you cannot do it, even if your life depended on it, grab me in the next open mats. We try to troubleshoot and take everybody on board with tripod passing, okay? So the question is, how do we pass in general, right? We have two ways of doing so. First, pass the legs and then get upper body control, or first get upper body control and pass the legs then, right? So if I have Paul here, like Toriano passing is a great example of like getting by the legs and trying to get upper body control after that, right? So we first bypass the legs and then we get into upper body control. Chest to chest half guard passing is like kind of the other way around, right? I get up body control and now I start, freeing the legs and starting to pass that, right? So those are the two orders of operation that you can pick essentially. And kind of every pass you do is one or the other, right? Because in order to solidify the position at the end, it's not enough to pass the legs. If you solidify the upper body first, you still need to pass the legs. Otherwise, it's going to be hard to really do something, right? So that's where tripod passing fits in, because you get upper body control first, and then you bypass the legs. The problem, though, that we have is when we have upper body control here, I have weighted his legs. That means if he moves his legs, he's going to move me, right? It's really hard to hold connection that way. And tripod passing is one way we can go about it to actually be able to not get pushed away, because we're going to disconnect our hips from the hooks and knees. So that will be harder to achieve for it. But you kind of have to have a little bit of body awareness, and you have to put weight on your head. And if you're not used to that, it's not going to be super easy. So first, what we're just going to do is practice a handstand. So you don't have to be able to pull off a full handstand, but you have to weight your head and walk your knees towards your elbows and bring your hip up really, really high. If you can't do that, it will be easier to actually work with tripod passing. So the first thing we're going to do is put the crown, so not the forehead, the crown of our head on the floor, and build a triangle with our hands. Now I'm just going to lift my legs and walk my knees towards my elbows. If I can do that, then I can probably also lift my toes up. If you can do that, that's more than enough to pull off what we're trying to do later, right? And you can do different things with it. If you are more experienced, like Michael, like he can do whatever, But if you're not as experienced with handstands and stuff like that, that's a great way to start. So again, front of the head on the floor, put the hands in a triangle shape with your head, walk your feet up towards your hands until you can actually connect your elbows and your knees together. And then even maybe you can start, doing whatever with your legs. But we're just going to do that first, so it will be easier for you to actually play the position, because that's what most people have problems with at the beginning. Everybody clear on what you're supposed to do? Good. 1, 2. Okay, so we don't have to keep doing that forever. It's just that you learn to bring your head down and your hip up high and weight your head. Some people are just not used to it, and it will pay dividends when we start in the position now. Because if I cannot bring my hip up high enough, I can't disconnect from his legs, right? So we want to practice that now in position. So we're just going to start in butterfly hooks. I get an underhook and I get a head post on the opposite side. And now it's on me to walk up my legs as much as possible without flipping over and being able to hold myself in position here. All Paul does at first is destabilize me overhead and to the sides. And if you can hold your position then, he's additionally allowed to push with his knees. So at first, try it without pushing off the knees and just side to side and overhead motion. So you get a feel for it. And once that works well, he's also allowed to push with his knees once I'm in position. And we're gonna up the resistance. If that works relatively well as well, he's also allowed to use his hands to try to unbalance me. Okay, so we scale it a little bit. We have progressions and regressions depending on where you stand. Try to pick a partner that is relatively the same size to you, so it makes everything a little bit easier, right? So you don't have a really short and a really tall person, right? So again, we start in position, butterfly hooks on the hook. I put my head on the mat, and now I start walking up, up, up. I can use this hand to post however I like. And now Paul just starts to move me around a little, and I need to stay here and try to remain in position. If that's too easy, he's also allowed to push me away with his knees. But he's not allowed to use the hand at first. Only if that is too easy for me, he's also allowed to use the hand. And this will be way harder if you're not allowed to be offensive. It will be easier in the second round when you actually start beating his legs. But it's a good way to just familiarize yourself with the position. Is everybody clear on what you're supposed to do? So you just switch one and one. If I can hold my position relatively well and he cannot get me up, we just switch. If he can push me out, we switch, right? If one partner is way better at pushing me out than the other, then we might spend more time on one person or the other. So you can decide that on your own with your training partners. Is everybody clear on what you're supposed to do? So keep your surroundings inside a little bit, because if you fall off to the front and you fall into people, then that's not so good. Okay, so keep an eye on your surroundings when you do that. Everybody clear? Great. 1, 2. Common issues you had.
The legs don't stay on the ground.
As long as you can keep on top, that's all right.
Interesting.
The head doesn't really go up that easy and stay above the shoulders.
Mm-hmm. Why?
So we're not walking up, kind of.
Maybe. So, one important thing when we just work with a position like that is don't ignore your problems, right? It's with everything. Because when I get into position and I get pushed out, for example, and then I do the position again, and I position myself the exact same way as before, the result's gonna be the same. So I need to position myself in a different way and find out if that works better or not. So we adjust the position every time. So don't ignore it if you have issues, right? Most common issues are I get tilted over, so I fall over. That probably only happens if your hip is high enough. If your hip is not high enough, most of the time people will not be able to bring you over, right? So now the question is, what solution do we have to that problem? Does anybody any idea?
Raising your hands a little bit behind.
I have a free hand I could post. Yeah, that definitely helps. What would help as well?
The underhook?
The underhook, yes, putting pressure with the underhook definitely helps. But what portion of your body is on the floor?
Your head.
My head, right? So everybody's built different. You might have noticed I have a long neck, so I have a good post that I can use for everything, right? You might not have a long neck. right? Everybody's different. The center of gravity is different. So one is going to place himself or his body weight like on the top of the head. Another one needs to adjust a little bit. So the position will be different for everyone, right? So what I mean by that is when we're here, and I put like almost the back of my head here, he's just going to push me over. Like, it's not going to work. So I know this, all right, I'm going to fall forward if I do it that far. So now I try to adjust. I try to put less of that on the front. Now, if he doesn't try it, like, it's going to be really hard for him. Like, he cannot bring me over. On the contrary, if I'm too low here, however, he can push me out with the knee, right? So this happens. So I need to find the balance between the two. Enough hip height so I can disconnect from the knees and the hooks, but not so much with my head position that I fall over. And this will be different for every one of you. And that might even be different with a different partner, plus a different leg length, and so on and so forth. So you need to get a feel for it. And that's what's really hard about that position at first. You need to get a feel for the position, and you will not succeed at the beginning. You need to play around with it. It's not an easy position to play, right? That's one of the reasons why we said, okay, first they can only bring you over the head and from side to side. They're not allowed to push you out. And then we add that if you can hold yourself in position. Now we can adjust. And it's important that you go through those phases and not do everything at the same time with a partner that cannot do it. Does that make sense for you? So we keep that in play. But now top person is allowed to start beating in any way possible the near side knee. What I mean by that is we're going to start in the same position. He lets me in. It's only go when I start, right? So we're going to walk up again. I find my sweet spot, right? Let go of that thing. So now I have posts here. I have a hand here. So now I can start stuffing knees. I can start stuffing knees to the side. The only important thing is that I can beat his knee to the inside or over top. And once I've got that, I make myself opportunities to pass and go, right? However you do it, just beat the near side leg. With a hand assist, without a hand assist, the free hand you have is like a floating hand. If you have a problem, you use that hand to adjust and fix the problem. If I have a problem with base, I use it to post. If I have a problem with beating the knee, I might use it to stuff the knee or open the knee up. If I have a problem that my partner's hand fighting me, I might use that hand to hand fight. Okay? So it's the same procedure. He lets me into position, and then he wants to destabilize me, throw me over top and to the sides first. And I want to beat that knee to the inside or over top. If that's too easy, he's also allowed to push me out. If that's too easy, he's allowed to hand fight, but try to abide by the rules, okay? Someone wins, so he can just throw me off, or I can beat the leg. We're gonna switch. Everybody clear on what you're supposed to do?
So
Very good.
I have a question.
Yeah?
If his upper body, what if he just flips out?
What if he just shrimps out?
Yes.
That's a very good question. Does anybody have an answer for that?
Smash it.
What does he need to do to be able to shrimp?
He won't have the hooks.
So to destroy.
He won't have hooks, right? In order to be able to shrimp, he needs to put feet on floor. So if that happens, it's a thank you, because he just broke his own alignment. It's like, huh? Right? So he cannot shrimp if he wants to keep his integrity with his legs, because that keeps me at bay. If he puts them to the floor, he's just gifted me something. And I just take it and say thank you.
Sorry, I have just one question. I don't want to start a lot of what ifs, but it feels like a very easy entry for the bottom guy to go to export from the way you're posted. Like if he controls one knee to one side, he can slide himself diagonally to what the export.
He won't. I can show it later, but first let's start to work with the things. Okay? 1, 2. So, The instructions are relatively simple, but it's not easy to pull off. Do you feel that? It's like it's not an easy position to be in. You need to get a feeling for where you need to be. And I want to address one thing that maybe helps, but you need to recognize it when you're in position. Most of you are not high enough with your knees. You want to ideally walk your knees towards the knees of your partner. That's a good landmarker for you that you can use. Sometimes you need to be a little below, sometimes you're a little up, but you want to be relatively close to the knees. And most of you are relatively far away. And what happens then is he has a good connection with his knees to my hip, and he's just going to push me out. So he may not be able to beat me to the sides or overhead, but he can always just push me away. So you need to break contact. So that's not so easy for him anymore. So if I have my partner here, right, and we are here, do you see how much of his knee is inside the pocket of my hip? He's just going to push the knee away. Like, I cannot hold it. And if I try to, I get in trouble, right? You need to come up and disconnect from his hooks as well. So some of you might have the problem that you push here and bring the knees up for him. Disconnect a little sooner, right? Because when I'm here, now I'm tight, now I start walking him up, like I push his knees up. I want to disconnect, so we're knee to knee. And if he starts pushing away now, like it's going to be really easy to just beat a knee because he doesn't have a lot of surface connection on my hip. And if I cannot break that connection, it's going to be hard for you to make it work. So that's one of the things that people have most problems with. So let your partner, when you're on bottom, let your partner position himself, herself in a way that makes it possible to have the knees on one line, relatively speaking. And then everything will be easy. Don't start before you achieve that. Is everybody clear on that? Of course. So now we're just gonna do the same thing, but at the other side to the game. I have an underhook, so I cannot use my hand additionally, but I can use the leg very, very well. So what I do is same position, right? I don't push his knees up. I disconnect and walk up. So we are knee to knee, relatively speaking, right? And from here, I don't want to just use that hand to address it because maybe I need to pose, maybe I need to do something with it. I'm just going to use the second leg to pull off the things I wanted to pull off on the other side as well, with the only exception that I don't have the luxury of pushing with the hand. But because I have an underhook, I can break that knee to elbow connection on that side pretty well. So you try to beat the knee on that side as well. If you cannot do it, you can still pummel or fold knees together. So when we're here and I've disconnected and I cannot beat the knee for some way or the other, I can start folding legs to the side. Come up again. I can also start pummeling with this leg to the inside, and I've beaten the knee as well, right? So depending on your abilities to pummel, you can do more or less. But every time you can fold his knees together or step over it, it's going to be great. If you know how to pummel your legs to the inside, you can add that to the game. So now we start and try beating both legs at the same time. So your partner has more problems at hand because he just can't address one side and leave the other side be. I start coming over knees with hand assists or with the help of the underhook. I start bringing the legs together or putting a foot on the inside. If I achieve any of that, I've won. My partner, same thing as before. First, if I have problems, he just tries to give me overhead or side to side. If that works well, he's also allowed to push me out. If that works well, he's allowed to hand fight more. So you can make it more or less difficult for you depending on where you're at right now. Is everybody clear on what you're supposed to do?
Is it okay for my partner on the bottom to get his feet in?
To get his feet in? So yes, one problem that can occur is people trying to get close guard. If you feel comfortable, you can add that, but it will be more difficult at the beginning. So if you're not there yet, leave it out. But it's an important part of the puzzle that you need to keep in mind when you play it fully. Because if someone closes a guard on you, you cannot try to do this.
weekends and fortunately.
Yeah, yeah. It's all part of the game.
What is head control and shoulder control for the person passing?
Pretty. It's pretty important. So, if you know what I mean by that, I will not explain it. Use regulated tension. Use pressure in the position. You don't just place your head and have an underhook and have it cosmetically. Use that. However you see fit, but put pressure into the position. Right? You go 1 and 1 again. Nothing changes. Everybody clear?
Yeah.
1, 2. How did that go? Does it become easier because you have more offensive tools?
Yeah.
Hopefully it should be, right? But still, look at your knees. Are his knees way higher than mine or are they not? And that's one of the predictors if you want to start or adjust your position first. I know it's difficult at the beginning, but focus on that first and then you start your round, okay?
So yeah, as a defense, I have really short legs. What do I need to do there?
So the nice thing about that position is if you are on top, do it well, bottom person feels stupid. If you do it incorrectly at top, you feel stupid. So it's very, very hard, even for super flexible guard players, to retain their guard if someone has good tripod passing. Look at the match of Joseph Chen against Tommy Langinger. Tommy has one of the best guards in the world and is super dexterous. He's like, he can bend it all kinds of ways, super flexible guard. And Joseph just passed him like it was nothing, right? It's like you feel stupid, like it shouldn't work like that. I've rolled with Joseph. It's a lot of fun, but you feel dumb. Because he gets you in positions that doesn't feel like a big deal to you, and then you're passed. Like it's a pain in the ass. So once people are there, it's a lot of work and very demanding. So try not to give people that position, especially hip height and knee-to-knee relation. Once they're there, it's a lot of work, and even if you can't throw them off, it's super demanding because you need to hold your knees to your chest the whole time. You cannot use the hooks properly. It's like very demanding to do that for long periods of time. So if you can, don't let them come up that high.
Thank you.
I know it's the typical answer, don't end up there, but it's the easiest answer. Anything else?
If there's a height difference, again, the person on the bottom is taller, does it make any sense for the shorter person to put their head on the person on the bottom, not on the ground? If it's difficult to reach the high enough to put it on the
So if you cannot reach the head to the ground, most of the time it's an issue of disconnection, not of length of body. Most of the time. Don't get me wrong, there's exceptions, right? If you're a stocky person and your partner is super lanky, like it just can be super hard to get there. But once you're there and you can disconnect and it's not too far apart from each other, like body-wise, you should still be able to make it work. But we can take a look at it later and maybe we'll be able to fix it.
When my partner was passing me, when we got far up enough with the sticks, my lower back disconnected from the ground, and it's not a lot harder to sweep him or just push him off. There will be should I just not let him up that far?
Yeah, but it's very dependent on how you enter the position. The problem and the main reason why we don't go over entries almost entirely is because it's super dependent on what you are able to do, like what your knowledge is, like how you play the game. And with such a big group of people that I don't know well enough, I can never create games that will make it possible to you to find entries. So that's why we don't go over that pretty much at all. But if you familiarize yourself with the position, you might be able to find your ways into it because you know where you need to end up. And then you can start playing around. At the end, if you have time, we play one entry game that's very specific, but it's still an entry game. that makes sense for most people. So I hope that will answer some of the questions. Okay. So the only difference between now and the one we did before was I really want to pass. Some of you already did that, right? But because you already won when you got the hook in or one knee beat, we need to fulfill the rest, right? We need to beat the second leg if I didn't already do that. So that's what we're trying to do now. So use the same principles that we already used to beat the second leg. One heuristic that may help for most people is if you're not sure, try to pass opposite of the underhook. So I have this underhook, I want to pass that way. Or take mount, then it's not as big of an issue, right? If I have this underhook, I want to pass to the opposite side. That might help at the beginning. If you know what you're doing, you can break that rule pretty effectively. But at the beginning, that's something you might want to look at, okay? So it doesn't matter how we proceed, what leg we can build up first. Like if I beat that, I need to find ways to beat the other one. If I beat that, I need to find ways to beat the other one. Right? With the same things we already did. By pummeling, holding legs, by stuffing knees. Same principle, but you want to end off a side pin or a mounted pin. That's all we're going to do. Still use the progressions we did. First, just unbalancing to the sides and overhead. If that works well, you're allowed to push out. If that works well, you're allowed to hand fight. Everybody clear on what you're supposed to do? Good. 1, 2. Do you guys all feel that you're getting more comfortable with the position? Yeah. At least that's my impression for most people, right? If that's wrong, please tell me. We'll fix your problems, hopefully, in open. So don't be shy. Come to me. I'll try to fix it. As I said before, it's simple but not necessarily easy, right? So now we want to do an entry game, but one where we already have upper body control. So everybody gets an underhook. So he wants to butterfly hook sweep me in the opposite direction of his underhook. And I want to go the opposite direction with my underhook, right? So the one that initiates has an advantage. That's why we switch initiation. What I mean by that is once he starts to move, I'm allowed to move. And when we do it the next time, once I start to move, he's allowed to move. So everyone gets to initiate once and have an advantage. Does that make sense for you? And all he wants to do is not push me out because that would negate his own sweep. He wants to stay connected so he can actually get on top. We just want to sweep with the hooks. So when he succeeds, like he's going to throw me that way. And up on top. Sorry. If I succeed, I start getting into position here and fix it however I see fit to pass. Right? So you have a fight of angle and need to do the same things as before. And did you see, hopefully, that I almost lost my balance? I needed to adjust because I overshoot myself a little. You get a feel for that. If you're somewhere in the middle, keep the game playing. Don't disconnect when you're on body. You want to still just butterfly hook sweep people overhead or to the sides. And we have the same grip at the beginning, right? So once more, I get an underhook, he gets an underhook. We both have head position, and now he starts to initiate. Go. That's all we want to do. It's going to be a fight. It's not going to be easy. Now, next round, we switch, same thing. Now, after that, I'm allowed to initiate. So if we're here. So Paul is only allowed to start moving when I start to move. Ah, great, you won. We switch on. Everybody clear?
Yeah.
Great, last game, okay? Be mindful about the surroundings with the butterfly sweeps, okay? 1, 2.
Okay.
stuff down.
So, let's say you have problems with that kind of passing. I think the class, or I hope the class is still worthwhile for you guys because you learn certain things, as I said before, that are important for other positions, like active posting, for example. So let's say Paul has an underhook and he has like wrist control here and he just wants to sweep me, right? So I learn how to properly post. I learn pummeling that we can use to actually get better position off of these things, because those things we did in position, right? We look at float passing, for example, like all the pummeling we did here, like getting over, back pummeling here, coming knee to knee and fold it. That's all the same things we've been doing. So those things help you in many, many other ways. So even if float passing will not be your cup of tea, you still work on skills that are important for other positions. So that's why I had the audacity to put a tripod passing class at all levels, because it's not super easy, right? But I think for the most part, you had success with some of the things, and I did see everybody succeeding in some battles. So that's good for me. So I hope you had a great time during the class. If you have any questions, right, feel free to come ask me. And it doesn't have to be related to class. Just grab me. Let's talk, right? Don't be shy. I tend to be shy a little bit from time to time. So maybe you need to come talk to me because I will not necessarily come to talk to you. You know? So just feel free, please, right? I'm here all week. Come get me. And if you don't mind, I like to have a picture. Thank you very much.